You know that incredibly universal, slightly gross experience. You reach into the very back of a dark, damp closet.
Oh, no. I know
And,
exactly where this is going.
or maybe it's like the bottom of a forgotten gym bag.
Yeah, the absolute worst.
And you pull out a piece of clothing that has just been sitting there for weeks, just completely away from the light, away from the air.
It is never a pleasant discovery
No, it's not.
because the physical state of the fabric, I mean, it fundamentally changes. You get that weird stiff texture.
Yes.
And that unmistakable smell. It's
Yeah.
just bad.
Exactly. It doesn't just stay stagnant, like waiting for you to come back to it.
Yeah.
It actively deteriorates.
Right.
It molds. It basically becomes something entirely different just by virtue of being left in the dark. Now, what if, and this is wild, but what if that exact same biological process, that literal physical rot is happening right now to the secrets you keep in the back of your mind?
Wow.
What if the worries you never say out loud are actually literally molding?
That is quite the image.
It really is. And today on our deep dive, we're going to explore a really fascinating answer to that exact question.
I'm very excited for this one.
We're focusing entirely on this single translated essay. It's from November 19, 2010.
Right.
It's by an author named Su Feng, and the translation and editing is by Kenya. The title is Frequently Expose Yourself to the Sun.
Such a great title.
It is. And the central premise, the mission for us today, is to look at this direct, completely uncompromising parallel the author draws between what sunlight does to physical objects and what public transparency does to human thoughts.
It's a really profound piece of philosophy because it essentially forces us to look at the mechanics of our own minds through a very tangible physical lens.
Right.
The author doesn't treat thoughts as these abstract, untouchable concepts. He treats them as matter.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because he starts right in that physical baseline we were just talking about, right?
Yeah.
The literal power of sunlight.
He really grounds it in reality first.
He does. He points out that objects kept from the sun for too long will rot, mold, stink, or deteriorate.
Just like the gym bag.
Exactly like the gym bag. But then he contrasts that with the natural function of light. He claims sunlight dispels evil, kills germs, detoxifies, boosts energy, and strengthens the body.
Right.
And that regularly exposing objects to the sun keeps them fresh, clean, and prolongs their lifespan.
The grouping of concepts there is, well, that's what makes the foundation of this essay so compelling.
How do you mean?
Blending the biological reality, like killing germs and detoxifying, with the philosophical concept of dispelling evil.
Yeah, that's a big jump.
It is, but we all instinctively accept that a damp basement breeds decay,
Right.
and that opening a window clears the air.
Oh, for sure.
By grounding his argument in that undeniable physical reality, he makes the leap to the abstract much, much harder to dismiss.
It is the perfect setup. I mean, if we intuitively understand that a damp towel rots in the dark and is totally purified, when you hang it on a clothesline in the sun, how does the author bridge this to human consciousness?
Yeah.
Because the leap he makes is huge.
Well, he bridges it by arguing there actually is no leap at all.
Wait, really?
Yeah. The text explicitly states that human thoughts are exactly like physical objects. They are subject to the exact same laws of nature.
That's fascinating.
And it is important to clarify what the author actually means by thoughts here.
Right, because we think about a lot of random stuff all day.
Exactly. He defines them as what we contemplate, ponder, worry about, and dwell on.
Okay, so we aren't talking about a passing thought, like trying to remember where you left your keys.
No.
We're talking about the heavy stuff, the real ruminations.
Precisely. The anxieties that take up permanent residence in our minds.
Yeah.
What's fascinating here is how he treats these invisible worries as tangible objects that need maintenance. And the warning here is stark.
What does he say?
He says if those specific heavy thoughts are hidden for too long without exposure, they become filthy, corrupt, tainted, and gradually deviant.
Okay, deviant is such an intense word for simply keeping a worry to yourself. I want to push back on this a bit on behalf of anyone listening who is, maybe a bit of an introvert.
Sure, go ahead.
For a lot of people, processing internally is just how they function. Sometimes you just want to figure something out on your own before you put it out into the world.
Right, that's very common.
So what does this all mean for our private anxieties? Is the author saying that simply sitting alone with a worry causes it to literally mold and become toxic?
It is a major pushback against our modern instinct to retreat inward, yes.
Wow.
Let's look at the mechanism of how a thought becomes deviant, according to this framework.
Okay.
When a worry is locked in the dark room of your mind, it lacks ventilation. It has no external friction.
No fresh air.
Right. Think about how the brain works. It is basically a pattern recognition machine that desperately wants to close loops. If it only has its own limited inputs, it starts filling in the blanks with assumptions.
Oh, I see. It's like playing a game of telephone, but entirely by yourself.
Exactly.
You whisper a slight insecurity into your own ear, and by the 100th time it loops around, the message has completely distorted.
Yes.
Like, I made a minor mistake at work, turns into, I am fundamentally incompetent and everyone knows it and I'm going to get fired.
That is a perfect analogy. The taint and corruption that the text describes happen because the thought is separated from reality.
It's an echo chamber.
An echo chamber of one. In isolation, a simple, rational concern loses its proportion. It mutates.
Just like the mold.
Exactly. That mutation, that detachment from objective truth, is what the author means by deviant. It deviates from reality because it hasn't been exposed to anything outside of your own head.
That makes a terrifying amount of sense when you break down the mechanics of it. You sit with a fear long enough in the dark, and suddenly you've built an entire monster out of shadows.
You really do.
So if this hidden rock, this isolated mutation is the problem, the solution he proposes is basically the core of the whole essay.
It is.
We need a sun for our minds. And he writes, point blank, the public is like the sun.
This is the central mechanism of his entire philosophy. Public scrutiny acts as a cleansing, purifying force.
Okay.
The claim is that the public is capable of restraining erroneous thoughts, making them difficult to conceal, and allowing others to examine, evaluate, and correct them.
Okay, stop right there.
I know.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because applying this to the real world sounds absolutely daunting.
It does.
Framing the public as a purifying sun, exposing our deepest, most sensitive worries to public evaluation so people can correct us. That sounds like a recipe for total embarrassment, not health.
Yeah.
We live in a world where public exposure usually means being mocked, judged, or completely torn down.
Right.
How is walking into a buzzsaw supposed to keep my mind healthy?
It is a completely fair skepticism. And, this raises an important question about how the text actually defines the function of the public.
Right.
In this specific framework, the sun doesn't burn out of malice, right? It illuminates.
Okay.
This isn't an argument for opening yourself up to a digital mob or engaging in performative self-flagellation. It is about the mechanism of calibration.
Calibration, like resetting a tool.
Exactly. Imagine you're navigating through a dense forest using a compass.
Okay.
But you don't realize you have a strong magnet in your pocket.
Oh, no.
Right. Your compass is going to point toward the magnet, not true north. You could walk for miles, totally convinced you're heading the right way because your internal tool says so.
Because in the isolated environment of just you and the compass, the logic completely holds up.
Right. The only way to know your compass is warped is to consult an external point of reference. You have to look at the stars or look at someone else's compass.
So the public acts as the stars.
Yes. The public, the community, the people you trust around you, they act as that external reality. They help you calibrate your inner world.
I like that.
When you take a warped thought out of your pocket and show it to someone, they can say, hey, your needle is pointing the wrong way.
So the correction he's talking about isn't an attack or a punishment. It's a structural realignment.
It is a protective measure.
How so?
The text argues that keeping thoughts hidden leads to a very specific chain of causality. It explicitly states that hidden thoughts become corrupt.
Right, the rot.
Corrupt thoughts lead to incorrect actions. Incorrect actions disrupt our lives, and in severe cases, take us down a path of evil.
Wow.
The intervention point, right. The only way to break that chain before it alters your behavior is the light of the community.
But I mean, what if the public is wrong? I keep getting stuck on this idea that the public is somehow inherently pure.
It's a valid concern.
Crowds can be cruel. Communities can hold deeply flawed beliefs. If my community's compass is broken and I calibrate to them, haven't I just adopted their rot?
That is the vulnerability of this philosophy, for sure. And it highlights why the author compares the public to sunlight, rather than, say, a judge or a jury.
Because sunlight is impartial.
Exactly. Sunlight doesn't have an opinion. Its function is simply to reveal what is there.
Okay, that makes sense.
By bringing a thought into the open, you aren't necessarily asking the crowd to dictate your truth. You are forcing the thought to exist in the friction of the real world. Even if the person you share your thought with gives you bad advice, the mere act of vocalizing it, of pulling it out of the dark, it changes the nature of the thought.
It breaks the echo chamber.
Yes, it loses its monstrous proportions just by being articulated.
I see. So the magic isn't necessarily that the public has all the right answers. The magic is that the thought can no longer hide in the shadows of your own assumptions.
Exactly.
It's out in the open, where you and everyone else can finally see it clearly.
Yes. The exposure itself is the medicine. And honestly, that brings us to what might be the most counterintuitive part of the entire essay.
Which is,
The text doesn't just demand that we undergo this scary process of exposure. It promises a massive structural payoff for our character if we do.
and the language he uses to describe that payoff is surprisingly gentle, compared to the stark warnings earlier about evil and corruption.
It really is.
He promises that a life lived in the sunlight knows no darkness or filth. But the part that completely reframed this whole concept for me, the absolute core insight, is how he describes the person who actually does this.
It's a beautiful description.
He argues that even if the thoughts you reveal are wrong, absurd, laughable, or ridiculous, the sheer act of sharing them makes you lovable, respectable, bright, and simple and honest.
It is a remarkable concession, isn't it?
It takes all the pressure off.
It really does.
We spend so much energy curating this facade of having it all together. We assume that if people knew our strange, flawed, paranoid thoughts, they would reject us.
Because they're ridiculous.
Right. But the text is saying, no, I fully expect your thoughts to be ridiculous. Of course they are moldy, they've been in the dark.
The expectation of perfection is entirely removed. He isn't demanding that you process your anxieties into a polished, logical thesis before you share them.
Think about the mechanics of this in everyday life.
Yeah.
Have you ever finally voiced a worry to a friend? Something you've been agonizing over for days in silence, and the absolute second the words leave your mouth, you hear how absurd it is.
Oh, all the time.
You say something like, I'm convinced everyone in the office hates me because no one commented on my new haircut.
Right.
And instantly the sun hits it. It just evaporates. You start laughing at yourself before your friend even responds.
That evaporation is exactly what the author means by sunlight killing germs.
Whoa.
When you vocalize the thought, it collides with reality. But let's look closer at why this specific act makes a person lovable and respectable, as the text claims.
Okay.
Why does seeing someone's messy, absurd thoughts draw us to them rather than push us away?
Because it is profoundly humanizing.
Yes.
When you see someone drop the armor of perfection, it gives you permission to drop yours. It shatters that illusion that everyone else has a pristine, perfectly ordered mind.
It builds trust through shared vulnerability. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the common assumption is that hiding our flaws protects our image and secures our place in the community.
But he's saying the opposite.
He argues the exact opposite. It is the act of hiding the attempt to project a flawless mind that makes us detached, aloof, and ultimately corrupt.
Vulnerability isn't a weakness then.
Not at all. In this framework, it is a required tool for refinement.
Being simple and honest about our absurdity is what actually creates connection. I just find that so incredibly comforting.
It really is.
The goal isn't to never have a bad thought. The goal is just to not let them sit in the gym bag.
Which leads directly to the sweeping final mandate of the essay.
Yeah.
The text concludes by stating that regardless of what we think, feel, or worry about, it is absolutely crucial to regularly expose these to the light of day.
Always be exposing them.
Because this practice isn't just about mental hygiene, it is essential for refining and elevating our character. The ultimate goal is the active elevation of the human spirit.
Wow.
Transparency is the forge in which a respectable life is created.
It is such a beautiful, challenging framework. So to kind of recap the journey this deep dive has taken us on today,
Sure.
we started with the universal biological reality that objects kept in the dark will rot and deteriorate.
The moldy clothes.
Right. We then mapped that physical truth directly onto our internal landscape, looking at the realization that isolated worries and hidden thoughts mutate.
They turn deviant.
Exactly. They become an echo chamber of one, turning deviant when deprived of the friction of reality. And finally, we arrived at the courageous solution, the act of taking those secret, often ridiculous thoughts and airing them out in the purifying sun of the public. Not to be destroyed, but to be calibrated, to be seen, and ultimately to make us lovable.
It requires a tremendous amount of bravery to operate this way, to trust that the light of exposure will purify rather than incinerate.
It really does. So for you listening right now, I want you to consider your own internal landscape.
Good question.
What damp, hidden thoughts are you currently keeping in the back closet of your mind? What specific worries are starting to mutate and warp your compass because you hasn't let anyone else see them? And how might exposing them, even if they sound completely absurd or laughable when you say them out loud, actually lead to connection and relief, rather than the embarrassment you're so afraid of?
It's an exercise in profound trust. Trusting the mechanism of the light and trusting the people around you to act as that calibrating force.
It is. But as we leave you today, there is one final angle to ponder that builds on everything we've unpacked.
Oh, I'm curious.
The author wrote this in 2010.
Right.
If the public acts as the sun that purifies our thoughts, what happens when that sun is filtered through the modern lens of social media?
Oh, wow. That's a completely different environment.
Does a heavily curated strategic confession typed out online still provide the purifying sunlight the author envisioned?
That's tough.
Or is a performance of vulnerability, where we carefully select which flaws to share for maximum engagement, just a much more sophisticated way of keeping the real truth locked away in the dark?
That is a phenomenal question.
We will let you sit with that. Just remember, the next time you find yourself stuck in your own head, holding on to a worry that feels like it's growing heavier and more distorted by the minute.
Don't leave it in the bag.
Exactly. It might be time to pull it out of the bag, walk outside, and finally let it see the sun.